a journey marked by resilience, innovation, and unwavering commitment to understanding and mitigating natural disasters. As our renowned slogan, communicating science and enhancing resilience. Before we begin, I would like to ask you to listen to the Indonesian national anthem to pay homage to our nation's enduring spirit. Thank you for joining in that moment of respect and reflection. Next, we present to you a special compilation video. In this video, our TDMRC College share their heartfelt messages commemorating at the center anniversary. This message from the heart of our community underline the commitment that have fueled TDMRC mission.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Saya mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun ke-17 bagi Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center atau TDMRC. Selama ini TDMRC telah menjadi salah satu pusat riset terbaik yang dimiliki oleh Universitas Syah Kuala. 17 tahun merupakan usia yang cukup matang bagi TDMRC untuk menjadi Center of Excellence dalam kajian mitigasi bencana dan tsunami di kawasan Samudra Hindia. Semoga TDMRC bisa terus menghasilkan karya inovatif serta inspiratif bagi pengurangan risiko bencana baik di tingkat lokal, nasional maupun global. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam hangat dari London. Selamat Milad TDMRC. Bagi saya, TDMRC adalah rumah tempat belajar membangun mimpi bersama sekaligus mewujudkannya. Terima kasih kepada para senior yang telah membangun fondasi dan pilar-pilar penting rumah ini. Kepada Pak Dirham, almarhum Pak Rida, Pak Didi, Pak Ridwan, dan teman-teman lainnya. Terima kasih juga kepada Pak Samsidik dan kawan-kawan semua yang terus membangun bagian-bagian penting lainnya dari rumah ini. Semoga ke depan TDMRC semakin jaya. Selamat Milad communicating science, enhancing resilience. Terima kasih.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat ulang tahun TDMRC yang ke-17. Saya bangga menjadi bagian TDMRC. Mari kita bangkit dan maju bersama. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Allahumma sholli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Saya Dr. Didi Sugianto dari Fakultas MIPA ingin menyampaikan selamat ulang tahun yang ke-17 kepada TDMRC. Semoga sukses selalu dan semakin berjaya dalam menjawab tantangan paradigma penanggulangan bencana kini secara global dan mengukuhkan posisinya dalam karya-karya yang nyata. Sukses selalu. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat ulang tahun TDMRC ke-17. Semoga terus berjaya dan berkarya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat ulang tahun TDMRC USK yang ke-17. Semoga TDMRC dapat terus berkontribusi kepada masyarakat guna mewujudkan masyarakat yang siaga dan tangguh menghadapi bencana.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat teman-teman TDMRC atas hari jadi yang ke-17. Semoga terus berkibar menjadi ujung tombak pengurangan risiko bencana di Indonesia dan Indian Ocean. Keep up the good work. All the best.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dirgahayu TDMRC yang ke-17. Tidak terasa persaudaraan dan persahabatan kita selama 17 tahun ini dalam upaya membangun ketangguhan bangsa, terutama terhadap bencana tsunami. Salam sukses dan semoga TDMRC tetap jaya. Salam dari IABI. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Abdul Muhari, Kepala Pusat Data, Informasi dan Komunikasi Kebencanaan BNPB, mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun yang ke-17 bagi TDMRC, Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center, Syah Kuala University. Semoga tetap berjaya, berkontribusi, dan berkarya lebih baik lagi untuk sains kebencanaan pada umumnya dan penanggulangan bencana di Indonesia khususnya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat ulang tahun buat TDMRC dari Syah Kuala University dari Aceh. Selamat ulang tahun yang ke-17. Sukses selalu. Saya ingat TDMRC adalah salah satu mitra pertama dari UNESCO dan kita sudah bekerja sama selama bertahun-tahun. Jadi 17 tahun itu sekarang beranjak dari remaja menuju dewasa. Semoga TDMRC selalu sukses, selalu berhasil, dan semoga kita terus bisa bekerja sama dengan TDMRC dan UNESCO. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Rizal Syahyadi atas nama Direktur beserta keluarga besar Sivitas Akademika Politeknik Negeri Loksmawe mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun yang ke-17 kepada Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center atau kita kenal dengan TDMRC Universitas Syah Kuala. Sebagai salah satu organisasi yang lahir karena adanya tsunami Aceh atau Indian Ocean Tsunami pada akhir tahun 2004. Semoga TDMRC USK dapat melakukan research dalam rangka meminimalkan dampak bencana di masa yang akan datang. Tidak hanya pada bencana tsunami, tetapi juga pada bencana lainnya di Aceh, Indonesia, bahkan di dunia. Di usia yang sudah 17 tahun, besar harapan. Semoga TDMRC USK diberikan kemudahan dan kelancaran dalam memberikan kontribusinya untuk mitigasi bencana di masa yang akan datang. Billahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat untuk ulang tahun yang ke-17 tahun kepada TDMRC. Sejak berdiri tahun 2026, TDMRC telah berkiprah secara signifikan dalam upaya pengurangan risiko bencana di Indonesia. Menjadi harapan kami bahwa ke depannya TDMRC bisa terus berkiprah secara global, meningkatkan ketahanan terhadap bencana. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Halo, tim Etibroya mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun yang ke-17
untuk TDMRC Universitas Syekh Kuala.
Semoga selalu unggul dalam penanggulangan bencana.
Semoga selalu diberikan kelancaran dan kesuksesan dalam berinovasi
dalam membangun ketangguhan masyarakat Indonesia.
Selamat TDMRC.
Etibroya, bumi sehat, dompet aman.
Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Maulana Kamal selaku Ketua dari Supervisor Council Fastana TDMRC mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun TDMRC yang ke-17. Tentunya besar harapan kami kepada TDMRC di bidang kebencanaan tentunya. Namun harapan terbesar kami adalah semoga TDMRC terus maju, baik itu di bidang penelitian maupun pengabdian masyarakat, dan semoga TDMRC terus mencetak generasi muda yang peduli terhadap kebencanaan. Demikian yang dapat saya sampaikan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam tangguh.
Tim Prepared Project mengucapkan
Selamat ulang tahun ke-17
untuk TDMRC Universitas Syekh Kuala.
Semoga selalu menjadi inspirasi
dalam membangun ketangguhan masyarakat Indonesia. Selamat TDMRC.
Selamat TDMRC.
Selamat TDMRC.
Selamat TDMRC. Selamat TDMRC.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kami dari SMP Nurul Fikri mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun TDMRC USK yang ke-17. Berkunjung ke TDMRC sangat menginspirasi kami dan menyaksikan semua pekerjaan luar biasa yang TDMRC lakukan. Kami bisa belajar lebih banyak tentang bencana. Semoga TDMRC terus sukses di tahun-tahun mendatang.
Terima kasih TDMRC.
Okay, we will begin with opening remarks from the esteemed Vice Sec. Sorry for the technical issue. We will begin with the opening remarks from the esteemed Vice Rector of Universitas Syekh Kuala, Professor Dr. Insinyur Agus Sapti, who has been a cornerstone in guiding TDMRC towards its noble goals. Please, Professor Agus Sapti.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All praises due to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, peace and blessing be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Good afternoon, and warm welcome to our respected guests, dedicated scholars, resilient survivors, our valued international partners, and participants. 19 years ago, the world witnessed a catastrophe that reshaped our understanding of nature mind. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. The wave that crashed upon our shores did not just erode the land, but also the fabric of our society. It was a day that has engraved itself into the memory of our nations. In response to this tragedy, Universitas Syah Kuala established the Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center, or TDMRC, in October 2006. Over these 17 years, TDMRC has stood at the forefront of disaster research, not only as an inspiration of hope and resilience for Aceh, Indonesia, but also as a fragrance of innovation and learning for the global community. We have transformed the painful lesson of the tsunami into knowledge, ensuring that the suffering endured serve as a greater purpose. Here at Universitas Syah Kuala, especially at TDMRC, our mission has been clear: to safeguard future through communicating science, enhancing relations. The effort of TDMRC have spanned from the depth of the ocean, understanding nature hazard, to the height of policy impact, shaping disaster readiness. Each step we have taken, each discovery we have made, has been a stride toward a better world. Today's webinar is a testament of TDMRC dedication as we mark 17 years of TDMRC impactful contributions. We also look to the future, carrying with us the invaluable lesson from the past disaster. These lessons have shaped our approach to recovery and resilience, and integral to the global dialogue on disaster management. I wish to extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed and expert speakers, whose insight and contribution have been invaluable to the advancement of disaster mitigation and recovery. Associate Professor Anawat Suprasri from EDIDES of Tohoku University, Japan. Dr. Rina Suryani Oktori from our very own TDMRC USE. Professor Emily Su from the University of Cambridge, and Professor Ellison Rabi from the University of Plymouth. Their collective wisdom and insight enrich our webinar today and guides our ongoing effort toward building a resilient future. By saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, the name of Allah, the Almighty God, I officially open this webinar. Let us proceed with today's webinar, carrying the spirit of knowledge, a commitment of resilience, and solidarity of our global community. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Agus Sakti, for those inspiring words. Now, before we proceed, let us capture this moment with a photo session. I invite everyone to turn on their camera for a group picture to commemorate our time together. Please, everybody to turn on your screen now. Please turn on. Please don't shy. Okay. Let me count it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cheers. Okay. Okay. Now we will begin the transition to our first parallel session. As we begin our conversation, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce the first of our distinguished speakers, Associate Professor Anwar Supasri, hails from the International Research Institute of Disaster Science (IRIDES) at Tohoku University, Japan. Professor Supasri's research has been pivotal in advancing our understanding of tsunami dynamics, risk assessment, and disaster prevention strategies. His works, deeply rooted in the rigorous analysis of past events, has not only to contribute to academia, but has also had a significant impact on the development of practical knowledge. We are indeed fortunate to have him with us today to share his insight. Without further ado, please join in welcoming Professor Anwar Supasri.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay.
Association Profesor Anwar Supasri lahir di Bangkok, Thailand pada tahun 1983. Anwar Supasri menerima gelar bahasa Inggris di Teknik Sipil dari Universitas Kuala Lumpur, Thailand pada tahun 2005. Magister bahasa Inggris di bidang teknik pengairan dari Asian Institute of Technology pada tahun 2007 dan gelar PhD di bidang teknik tsunami dari Universitas Tohoku, Jepang tahun 2010. Dari tahun 2010 hingga tahun 2012, beliau adalah peneliti pasca doktoral di Pusat
Okay, that is the short brief from the CV for Professor Anwar Supasri. Please to begin your presentation, Professor.
Thank you so much. So I think I can, I don't have to say anything. It's already in the video already. So let me just start. Give me some seconds. This is the program. Can you see my PowerPoint right now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. So, yeah, so I'm from Tohoku University, Anwar Supasri, and just by chance, actually, I'm now currently visiting UCL, so now I'm in London. So I and two other speakers in the afternoon. Actually, we are in UK. So I'm very happy, very great honor to be invited to this very special event, and also most important, happy birthday to TDMRC, and I really wish you enjoy and look forward for future collaboration. So my role today, I think I would like to share the current situation in Japan, and what have been done so far, and what is our challenge in the future. So I have many slides, so I'll try to go very quick in some slides, and try to fit within 20 minute times window. So after it's about more than 10 years, 11 years after 2011 tsunami already, and also the establishment of IRIDES as well. In general, we were thinking about construction or planning types into two types. I'm not sure in situation of in Banda Aceh, but maybe more or less similar, where for the place where we have mountain, in Japan we have an idea to move the residential area to the mountain and ask them to live the safe place there, or if we have no high ground, we do multi-layer countermeasure. So for example, for the lowland area, we help the government by doing, for example, many types of simulation. What if we add the new elevated road along the coast? How much this road, depending on the height, how much the tsunami can be mitigated, and then the government can make decision what is the most appropriate size of the new elevated road, for example. This idea also, we worked with Professor Samsidi some years ago, that we also apply about this kind of idea in Sendai to the port, the Aceh Madajah Outer Ring Road as well, to see how this can help mitigate the tsunami. Similarly, in some area, we also ask, after the tsunami, we also increase the land elevation of the residential area like this, so that we make sure that tsunami in the future will not cause any damage to the town. But again, this kind of thing I will speak later, but we didn't consider the impact of sea level rise in the future. This is one area that we use the tsunami debris inside in the middle of the mountain, and we make like an artificial mountain for the purpose of evacuation. And also we also do some engineering assessment that how much these kind of artificial hills can reduce the tsunami speed or time, something like that. So in terms of maybe different to other countries, in Japan we have effort in building many coastal defense structures, and to incorporate this height of structure against the quick frequency or return period of tsunami, we have something like what we call tsunami level 1 and level 2, which is for lower more frequent tsunami, we will build the tsunami height or coastal defense height as high as we can protect that high frequency tsunami. But again, this one we didn't consider sea level rise in the future. And for level 2, like 2011 tsunami in Japan or 2004 in Sumatra tsunami, we will let tsunami overtop the structure, but we make sure that the structural damage will not happen behind or to the structure. So this is just to give you an overall idea that how, for example, the actual tsunami height were in the yellow dots, but the real seawall or other structural height will be only add up into from blue to red line because of many reasons, including the scenery or construction or maintenance costs, or it's as a result of when we talk with local people. This is one good example that this is a very nice beach, right? You can see the very nice sea color and white sandy beach. But after tsunami, the first plan government would like to add the seawall extend to the beach, and it's very big like this, so local people reject this proposal. So it comes to the end to these types that we set back the seawall back to the more inland, and we increase the land elevation behind the seawall, so that the wall is like you drive on the top of the seawall, and the seawall will not block your eyesight. This is one of the good example of reconstruction. And they also consider they doing like sediment transport modeling just to make sure that the beach will be recovered. In terms of warning, we have been doing things not only to deploy more sensor, but also we reduce the categories of this warning system to be more simple, from 8 to 5 level, so that people can understand. Or in some case, for very big tsunami, we will not tell the numbers, otherwise people will compare the number of the announced warning height and also the height of seawall, height and elevation that they live, so that this kind of thing might delay the evacuation. We also support the local government by doing evacuation simulation to show that, okay, which road might be be in traffic. What if we what would be the good percentage of people using car during evacuation, or what is the proper road width, or if we how can we adjust the traffic during the evacuation so that we can help planning for the evacuation plan in for this is one example in Kesenama. So my main topic will be from now, which is like to give you overview of what we have been done so far. So for civil rights, as I mentioned earlier, we also think about what kind of impact in the future. We test in one area, in some areas, and we found that in some case, for example, even the civil rights only 70 centimeters, but for the run up at the end, it can be double. So, but of course, it depends on the location. And also, for example, this map just to show, like in case of just normal sea and plus civil rise 40 centimeter or 70 centimeter, how far tsunami can go further. So this kind of general assessment that we can show the public how tsunami civil rise can impact on tsunami in quantitative way, and to be aware that in some cases it's not linear but can be non-linear or even double than the size of the civil rise. For example, in one this school, students and teacher could survive under the roof space here, and tsunami just reached above here. So for example, if tsunami come during this civil rise in the future, situation might be they might not be safe, for example, or this man, he survived in the second floor, but if we can think about civil rise, it might be in danger for him. So this kind of thing we would like to consider in the future. And recently, the Miyagi Prefecture, where we are living, they have just recently announced a new tsunami map, and this is the map, and also the map also show you the idea of tsunami arrival time, that will arrive after 1 hour, and what is the height, something like that. But the thing is that in the case of 2011, it was during the low tide. So for this one, they consider worst case, so adding more in case of high tide, and add more worst case scenario, and then they revise the map. But still, they didn't consider the civil rise yet. So this kind of thing that I think still ongoing, challenging in Japan. Well, this kind of thing also has been already studied by TDMRC colleagues, as on this paper, how far or what is the increase of the inundation extent for different earthquake magnitude and civil rise scenarios. And also on the other hand, we can also use the same result, but in other ways, like this paper, when we talk about, for example, if we fix one height of the tsunami, you can see that rising sea level can reduce the return period from 900 to 800 or 400 years. So this kind of thing, I think, yeah, that is another thing that we can continue. And also, for example, we also apply similar thing to Japan, and we also apply some economic damage data, so that we can assess what is the direct or indirect loss from different tsunami source, and also to know that which sector, agriculture or service or manufacture or whatever, what sector will be more impact by the tsunami and also the civil rise. I think also which region is more impact also by the civil rise and tsunami as well. The next challenge right now is the what we call non-seismic tsunami. Of course, we know that most tsunami, like let's say 80-90% was generated by earthquake, but still some of them was generated by non-seismic source. For example, last year in Tonga, there was a very big eruption, and it's generate tsunami not only by the energy of the eruption that inundate Tonga locally, but also, as you can see from this figure, the air and water couple phenomena also generate tsunami, and even reach to Japan or South America or other water bodies in the world. And in Japan, they also create the damage to the fishing boats and the aquaculture stuff as well. So yeah, so this kind of example that we didn't expect. And even in Japan, at that time we only the JMA, Japan Meteorological Agency, at first they didn't expect that tsunami, but from our densely earthquake and tsunami observation network, we observed very large, more like 1 meter or less tsunami arriving earlier than we expected. So we could announce the warning or tsunami advisory. But again, this is kind of new lessons from what we learned from the recent years. This situation is more or less similar to the anak Krakatau that happened in Indonesia in more than 100 years ago. And in fact, few weeks ago, we also had another unidentified tsunami event. It was occur after a series of magnitude 6 earthquake. For those experts, you know that it's very hard to think that magnitude 6 of earthquake can generate tsunami, but and then at some point the JMA observed like 60 or 50 tsunami in many places. So and they released the tsunami warning and advisory. Still we are thinking working on this, what is the cause of this tsunami. Some say that it's like volcanic process related tsunami, but still we are still figure out about this event happened a few weeks ago. In terms of warning and evacuation, what is our challenge? As I mentioned, even now we have the government has expanded their network. You can see before 2011, and now they have many network largely different in the Tokyo area. We went extend to the trench. We have this kind of sea bottom sensor, also similar thing in the west of Japan. This is what we have, but I feel that even we have this kind of situation sensors, but you may have seen similar data or scientific result like this, like when we say, okay, we expect tsunami height of 5 meter every 1,000 year or something like that. But when we talk to local people, I think it's quite challenging to let local people understand what is the meaning of like 5 meter in 500 years or something like that. They would like to understand more on how, like, for example, which area, if tsunami earthquake happen in this point, will tsunami arrive to their home, or do the factory have to stop their production line if tsunami or earthquake happen from this area, something like that. So I think we can somehow use the result when we plot this kind of probabilistic hazard curve to do something like this. For example, this one work with my student some years ago, that we apply the same thing when we do the tsunami hazard curve, but we would like to convey the information in a way of, for example, if you are in the Sendai port, or if you are the factories in here, from our result we can say that, okay, if the earthquake, in case of magnitude 7 of earthquake, if the earthquake occur in this red point, the tsunami will be definitely, well, yeah, generate more than one meter, which is reach the tsunami warning level to Sendai port. But if the location of the earthquake is in the yellow points, there will be yes or no, depends on the location or angle of the fault, or if the earthquake occur in the blue area, it's more chance that tsunami will be less than 1 meter, and then you can continue your factory or production line, something like that. So this is kind of a new thing that I think this kind of way of convey information warning or disaster might be more useful for the stakeholders. Again, currently we are I and other EDS colleague, we are advising, for example, these stakeholders who are living along the coast, or not living, sorry, they are doing their activities along the coast. For example, our students Lowling Club, they are doing their practicing in a canal along the coast like this, and we have Sendai Port and we have Air Self-Defense Force, which is based inside the 2011 tsunami inundation zone. But the thing is that as you can see here, it's actually, for example, in Sendai we have 7-meter high seawall in front of these facilities, but because of course as a government they cannot cover every single details of the seawall, so that means they have to, you know, announce, for example, if tsunami expected to be more than 1 meter, they have to announce tsunami warning. But you know, one tsunami, 1 meter of tsunami, but we have 7 meter height of seawall. So in idly it is okay, tsunami will be fine. But when local people or non-expert hear the word warning, they would like to evacuate, and of course it stop the business or other things like that. So there's no right or wrong decision, but I think this kind of thing, the warning category and the size of the seawall or other protection should be also considered when you want to make the business plan for local things. I think last but not least, I would like to stress a little bit more about the current challenge or what a new finding related to the damage assessment that what we have done so far. Thanks to the two tsunami Indonesia in Krakatau, that volcanic eruption, but no ground shaking and only tsunami, and also for the Palu event, very big shake and liquefaction and tsunami. So this kind of different phenomena give us more results to compare the damage response to the tsunami characteristics. So as you can see, the impact from the ground shaking, from the wave period, long or short period, liquefaction. So for example, in Palu, there's a large liquefaction compared to others. So you can see that even lower, almost zero flow depth, but we have damage because of liquefaction. For Banda Aceh, because of the strong, although no liquefaction, but because of strong ground shaking, so even smaller tsunami flow depth, it already caused very large damage to the building, for example. So this kind of structural response we could also understand from the recent real damage data with different patterns. And also, as I mentioned, the tsunami from Tonga that attacked Japan last year, it damaged aquaculture raft like this, and this is one bay as an example. These greens rafts are fine, but these two areas are some moderate damage. So we are now currently trying to understand what is the damage to these facilities. So we do some modeling and to understand, okay, the damage will occur to this kind of facility if tsunami is larger than 1.5 meter per second, for example. Still, we have to improve accuracy of model, but this is how we work at the moment. Or we apply some debris transportation model to see, okay, still, but we didn't add the impact effect of the anchor, the weight of this one, but we just let it flow, and you see that more the damage that happened to the raft in the area is flow longer than others. Sorry, I have to be quick, but this is my last slide. I would like to make a summary of my talk that I think that from now, in my perspective, more or less in Japan, but probably similar to other countries, that I think we have to study more about sea rise impact to tsunami. Of course, it is about 50 or 100 years in the future, but it might work to understand when we would like to do the the urban planning in the future, how much this kind of things will be influenced. A non-seismic tsunami, as you can see in recent years, there are many example of these types of tsunami that we still don't understand. So of course, in Japan we have many dense observational network, but in Indonesia other you might have limited number of that. So to understand more about this kind of thing, or to make sure that local people will not ignore the warning from the government, that will be also another good point in my perspective, which is also related to warning and evacuation, that we have to think about more locality, what is the structural events or the people behavior or awareness. And again, yes, this is similar to that two or three points as I mentioned before, that we have to consider zero rise, and also compare with new data of the building damage vulnerability relationship, that we can improve the accuracy of the damage assessment. Last but not least, I think we have limit of time today, but based on my research network and what I'm corroborating, in Japan there I think there are two more topics that probably we can also work together with TDMRC in the future. For example, one is we have, of course, so this has been discussed in the last iWest as well. We talk about disaster vulnerable person. So yeah, I think this can be also important. And also we have the casualty data of 2011 tsunami. We know the reason of why they died, or location of the dead body found, something like that. We are working with professor in medicine, try to understand the cause of the death, or with the environmental parameters. So we are trying to improve the situation, or make sure that the evacuation shelter will be better prepared, or how we can contribute to reduce the number of casualty during the future tsunami. Okay, I think this is the end of my talk. So thank you so much for your listening. And once again, I would like to celebrate the 17th birthday of TDMRC. Thank you so much.
Let me thank you, Professor Supasri, for that enlightening presentation. I believe that we already have a really deep knowledge about the tsunami study from Professor Anwar Supasri. And next, I will have the privilege of hearing from our second speaker, Dr. Rina Suryani, from the Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center. Dr. Oktari's dedication to our center is exemplified by her tireless efforts in research, community engagement, and particularly in championing the role of women in disaster resilience. Here are the short brief of her CV.
Dr. Rina Suryani Oktari, Escape MSI. Lahir di Bandung tahun 1983. Dr. Rina Suryani Oktari adalah Associate Professor di Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Syakuala dan kini mengajar studi bencana. Beliau juga memegang beberapa peran penting dalam bidang penanggulangan bencana. Beliau telah mengenal bidang penanggulangan bencana sejak ia bekerja untuk respon dan pemulihan tsunami tahun 2004 di Aceh. Dr. Rina Suryani Oktari memiliki lebih dari 10 tahun pengalaman bekerja di bidang kemanusiaan dan pembangunan, termasuk Islamic Relief, PBB, dan program yang didanai pemerintah Australia yang bernama Local Government Innovation for Community in Aceh Phase 2. Minat penelitiannya yang luas mencakup pendidikan bencana, kesehatan bencana, sistem peringatan dini, perubahan iklim, kesiapsiagaan dan ketahanan masyarakat, manajemen pengetahuan, dan komunikasi bencana.
Okay, please, Dr. Oktari, to present your presentation. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to share the disaster long-term recovery from the tsunami Aceh. So allow me first to congratulate TDMRC for the 17th years anniversary. Okay. Okay. Today, I would like to share. This is from our previous research on the recovery assessment from the 10 years and then 15 years after the Indian Ocean tsunami. So my presentation title is the long-term disaster recovery journey in Aceh after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. So as we know that Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 has a great damage, resulting more than 160,000 people dead and missing, and then around 500,000 displaced from home, and then 50,000 were housed in barrack, and 65,000 remain in tents, and then around 80,000 and 110,000 new houses are needed, and then 25,000 families require some form of locations. And also approximately 10,000 households need resulting, and then 80% of land documents lost, including almost all the cadastral index maps, and then destructions of much the physical evidence of property boundaries and witness evidence held in the minds of those who perished. But what is make the tsunami recovery in Aceh special? The tsunami happened also play an important role as a catalyst for peace and progress in Aceh. As we know that there are more than 30 years conflict between separatist rebels and the central government, claim around 15,000 to 25,000 lives and displaced over 400,000 people. And then initial peace attempts had limited success, and martial law was enforced for 18 months with 40,000 soldiers. And after the tsunami happened, the peace efforts gained momentum, especially the Memorandum of Understanding was signed by both parties in August 2005. And on April 2005, there are the establishments of the reconstructions and rehabilitations agencies by the President of the Republic Indonesia. This agency has a mission to restore livelihoods and strengthen communities in Aceh and Nias through a coordinated community-driven reconstructions and development program that adheres to the highest professional standards. And this agency has a role including leading the government agency for the post-tsunami rehabilitations and reconstructions, and then coordinate the efforts to ensure transparency, accountability, and speed in the reconstructions of Aceh and Nias, and then provide the necessary humanitarian assistance to displaced families affected by the tsunami, and then develop an implementations of housing policies and execute of barracks decommissioning plan. And in 2007, the government established the Aceh Recovery Framework. This organizations has a role to coordinate and ensure the implementations of the peace agreement, and then also the tsunami recovery and the development come together, and how this Aceh Recovery Framework also has several clusters leading by the government of Aceh, governor as a chair. And you can see here there are some clusters in the Aceh Recovery Framework, including the peace process and reintegrations, and then basic services, economic development, gender working team, and then infrastructure and housing, capacity building and asset management, and then rule of law, good governance, and democratic decentralization. So this Aceh recovery framework was supported by the 10 recovery forum consultation, which is spread among the district in Aceh. And then after that, the government of Aceh also established the Aceh Sustainable Reconstructions Agency. This agency taken over the role of the Rehabilitation and Reconstructions Agency at the provincial level. And this agency also has a role to provide policy and strategic directions on continuing reconstruction effort in concert with the local and national government. This agency performed the activities until 2009, when all remaining reconstructions activities and related fund disbursement and utilizations had already completed. And the coordinating secretariat for completions of the reconstructions at the Ministry of Finance will monitor and evaluate the finalizations of the overall reconstructions activities consistent with the revised master plan. This is I took it from the IDB study, where they evaluate the reconstructions or recovery process until 2007, and this study showed that there was a slow reconstructions progress, and then unmet targets and budget issues, and also some of the economic impact, including the job scarcity and increased inflation. And then it is important to have coordinations during that time, and disaster also accelerate the peace negotiations, and the local disaster management, early warning, and community resilience are the key importance aspect. And then international agency need faster, more efficient response in developing countries. And then also, it is also important to have realistic goals, coordinated efforts, and accountability during the recovery process. And then also, it needs a clear exit strategy to ensure the smooth local transitions for the recovery efforts. So after 10 years tsunami, TDMRC carry out the recovery assessment. So one of the results has already been published. And in some of the interesting finding is after 10 years tsunami, the tsunami risks were a minor concern for selecting new places to live, especially for people or the community who are living in the Banda Aceh coastal area. Other factors like land prices, proximity to workplaces, and community facilities were more influential. So they don't worry that they are living in the tsunami-prone area, as long as the land price is cheap, and then it's near to their workplaces. And then return migration to the coastal area reshaped the land use in the high-risk tsunami zone. This indicates the reduced tsunami risk as a migration factor. And Banda Aceh also face the challenge of building evacuations facilities and increasing tsunami hazard awareness. And it is important to implement a strict land use control to limit new pull factors to coastal areas. And then keep how we ensure the low population density within the 1 kilometer of the coastline to maintain the buffer zone concept. And then it is also important to conserve and protect salt marsh area to avoid attracting more populations and settlements in the coastal area. And then it's also important to conduct routine tsunami evacuation drills and discourage the use of cars and motorcycles during the evacuations, because during the big earthquake in 2012, most of the community in Banda Aceh using their cars or motorcycle for to evacuate to the higher place. And it's also important to learn from the past mistakes in evacuations processes. So after 15 years of the tsunami Indian Ocean in 2004, we again TDMRC conducted the tsunami recovery assessment which is not only for Banda Aceh region, but also we are also assessed in the other 9 districts in Aceh province. So this is several findings from the recovery assessments, including there are a significant reductions in preparedness activities because during tsunami 2004 or after tsunami 2004, there are so many international organization, donor who support the activities to increase the community preparedness or resilience after the tsunami. But after these organizations leave Aceh, so there is no sustainability of the program in Aceh, and it also result in the sense the increasing the sense of the dependency of the community of Aceh to get support or assistance from other organizations. And then it's also because the external project lack local motivations for initiative, and this also result. Sorry. Yeah, this also contribute to the not sustain some of the program or activities in Aceh to increase the tsunami preparedness. And also one of the finding is the unclear mechanism in transitioning from the short term to the long term recovery. And then we did the tsunami preparedness assessment, which cover the community, the schools, and the health facilities. The overall funding show the good level of the tsunami preparedness in Aceh, but noted specific area requiring some improvement, especially in school and the healthcare facilities. And some of the recommendation, including the integration of the disaster education in the school curriculum and conducting regular tsunami drills, because we understand and we learned from the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011, where the students in Kamaishi, they are safe from the tsunami because of the long-term sustainable disaster educations which has been implemented in that school together with the local wisdom called the Tsunami Tendenko. Probably Anwar Sensei could share about these best practices. And then this assessment also suggests strengthening tsunami mitigations through escape building constructions and mandatory annual tsunami drills at the city and the town level. We also conduct some assessment regarding how the gender mainstreaming was implemented in the community-based disaster risk reductions activities, especially here in Indonesia. We have the Destana program or the Disaster Resilience Village program. So according to the finding that we have, the men and women have the equal procedural but not substantive opportunities in policies, planning, institutions, funding, capacity building, and disaster management. But the proportions of women's participations is smaller than that of men, because sometimes women are often hesitant to express personal opinions due to social dynamics and family authority. That's why we need to do some affirmative actions in order to eliminate the patriarchal culture. And also it is important to promote gender equality through attitude adjustment and long-term gender mainstreaming. And then emphasize multidimensional long-term gender mainstreaming for the resilience communities and encourage further studies to address this issue. And currently, through the finding from the Ministry of Education, we are currently studying on the role of women as a leader in enhancing community resilience in three crises, including during the conflict, tsunami, and COVID-19 pandemic. And it is very interesting to find that there are many women, both at the structural level or the grassroots level, that play a very important role during these three crises. And we can see here also there is some progress, especially in the regulations of the disaster management in the Aceh province, especially after the tsunami 2004, there are establishments of the disaster management agency in both national and then provincial and district level. So including in Aceh province and in the district, all the district in Aceh. And also there are several governor decree, including the actions plan on rehabilitations and reconstructions after earthquake in Central Aceh and Benar Meriah. And then, there's several others regulations that has been released by the governments of Aceh. And you can see here, this is the zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. The red color, this is show that this is the high risk tsunami area, and the yellow is more moderate. It is affected by the tsunami also, but not as this is the most devastated area after the tsunami 2004, and the green one is a more safety area or didn't affected by the tsunami 2004. We can see here how the number of community living in this area, especially in the high risk tsunami area. After tsunami 2004, we can see in 2005 there are only less than 3,000 community living in the area, but now according to the data in 2022, so now there are triple people or community living in that area. You can see also here some changes of the land use in Banda Aceh due to the tsunami 2004. We can see here in 2015 there are many more residents living close to the coastal area. And then regarding the tsunami early warning system, the Aceh governor released the regulations number 43 year 2010 concerning early warning and emergency management system for tsunami disaster in Aceh. And there are some of the exercise including siren activations function tests to ensure this system continues to function. And every 26th day of each month, it is sounded twice for a duration of 45 seconds. But of course, the governments conduct socialization to the local community to ensure that the community not to panic and not to be afraid when they heard the sound of the siren. And this is some of the community-based disaster risk reductions effort, including the disaster resilience village at the and also some of the infrastructure resilience, including the tsunami museum, hospital, and an evacuation building. And then this is some school-based education and awareness. It's already changes name time to time. Now we call it as the Satuan Pendidikan Aman Bencana or Disaster Safe Education Unit. But still, we are progressing how we increase not only the disaster preparedness of the school community, but also to ensure that the building is also safe for the children. And then also intergenerational knowledge transmission. This is also very important, how we can learn from the tsunami 2004 in Simalu. There is a case of Smong, which illustrating the intergenerational knowledge transmissions in saving lives during the tsunami hazard. And then there are also some significant role of the higher educations, including the Universitas Syah Kuala also engaged in the university network for disaster risk reductions. And then We also have the memorandum of understanding with the Universitas Mataram and Universitas Tadulako to have a more disaster resilience higher educations. So the Universitas Syah Kuala also have several efforts in enhancing the community, especially the students and staff to be prepared for disaster. And last week we just finished our disaster simulations for the students. And also TDMRC as a research center also has released some innovative research products. And then also we did some advocacy, including the local regulations or kanun on disaster educations and some of the government document. So that concludes my presentations, and I'm happy to discuss further about this topic. And again, congratulations to the MRC. So I give back to the moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aktari, for the bright presentation. I think we will commencing the Q&A session now. And due to limited time, I believe that we can only wrap up about 2 questions. Please, everybody from the participant, if you have any question, we're allowed to do so. I believe you can raise your hand in the Zoom.
Iya, kenapa?
Dia main slot lagi sama
I want to ask questions for Professor Anawat. Yes.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Anawat, for very nice presentation and your for the 17 years of TDMRC. So I know there is a lot of going on with the modeling right now, and then one of the main focus that to understand which source of tsunami will impact the highest among the location at the coastal areas. Do you think that with the recent development of artificial intelligence will eventually help us to get more understanding on which locations that really being as a big impact compared to the other coastal area and various type of source of tsunami? What is your opinion about that?
Thank you for your question, and which link to the future perspective of the science and technology to help mitigate our tsunami society. Yes, I agree with you that it can help at some point, but I mean, to do that, to do the learning, we need the good topography and bathymetry data, right? I think you can very guess things about that. So I think with this kind of new AI or machine learning, deep learning things is more or less like a black box model. Like you could give, if I mean the model is always good, but if you give good input, you get good output as well. But yeah, inside that we also need the bathymetry and topography data. So I feel that so that is more important. One important thing that we put effort on that. For example, the StarTraps project that we are working with Professor Samsidik and also Bu Okta as well. We also, in my responsibility, one of my responsibilities, the task for topography is to develop a way to produce bathymetry and topography data for the project, or in the future, even after project, Indonesian colleagues can develop good bathymetry and topography data for the simulation or for the things that you has mentioned to my question. So I think again I would like to repeat that. Yeah, I believe that this kind of thing is can help, but yeah, and also I got some comments by another professor, kind of big name professor as well. He also mentioned that there's recent trend in disaster journal that many mathematicians or data science researcher trying to publish paper in disaster more on that using their science knowledge, well, like information science knowledge, but they are not disaster. They have no knowledge about disaster. So I think, of course, we have disaster background, so we can learn from knowledge from data science people, and then we apply it. And we know that, okay, this is kind of just statistical magic way to fit the result, but then we should also know how it happened, why it happened, what is the meaning of this. So I think this is another dimension, point of view that I would like to add to your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Anawat. I have one more question, if it's okay with the organizer.
Yes, please.
Okay, with Professor Anawat, the same thing. You mentioned about the structure like the sea wall at the coastal areas. The government that will spend a huge amount of resources to build this seawall. Do you have any other suggestions for the developing countries that in the high risk of a tsunami, which that may help to reduce the force of the tsunami or even to reduce the tsunami height and eventually can give them some more times to evacuate during the tsunami?
Thank you for your question. I think this may be similar to Bu Okta presentation, that I think we should for non-Japanese country, I think we should put more effort on education or other non-structural things. Of course, we need warning system or also sensor as a base information to increase the accuracy of the warning. But at the end, we cannot do anything unless the local people have no education, or we have no plan, or they have no support for them. So I think, yeah, for non-Japanese country, I would suggest more non-structural things. And also, well, I would like to ask also if in the future in Japan we have I think at the end of my presentation I mentioned about gender or disabled person. I think Japan we are kind of very serious aging population country among the developed country, and also you know that we have also big gender gap, and we are trying to improve that situation. So I think and also like LGBTQ person or other sexual minority. So we just start to think about this in more detail, and we try to compile with like, for example, mapping facility that can be friendly to this other disabled person, something like that. So I think I hope that future we can also do similar study in Indonesia as well, in MILAD. So for future collaboration, another kind of possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Nawat.
Okay, great. Is there any question from the participants? I believe we have one slot of question.
I think someone is raising hand.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to ask question, I think, for both speaker. Thank you for the chance. My question is about the challenge, because both Prof. Anawat and Bu Okta already in the field for these years. What are the main challenges that maybe both in Japan or maybe in Aceh that still facing those challenges even after maybe the 17 years or maybe 10 years? Thank you.
Thank you. Bu Okta, you want to go first or you want me to?
Okay. Allow me to go first, Professor Anawat. I think the most challenging is about the people mindset or the disaster, about the disaster paradigm, because currently, even after the tsunami 2004, most of the people still thinking about the responsive. So we are still waiting for the disaster happen, then we respond to the disaster. Why I mentioned this, because we already initiate the effort in preparing the policy brief about the importance to have the local regulations for disaster education, about the kanun for disaster education. We initiate this these regulations start from 2016 after the PD Jaya earthquake, but until now, there's still no agreement about these local regulations. In fact, that most activity implemented at both school or the community level, usually it's a more on the project-based approach or top-down approach. That's why there is no sustainability of the activities. We encourage this regulation to ensure that we will have a more structure, a more a sustainable effort for the disaster education, because it is not enough if we only conduct tsunami drills once. It needs a more regular effort to increase the community preparedness. Maybe, hopefully, that's answer your question, Suchi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. For me, I think I would like to, briefly repeat my conclusion and link with the Bu Okta presentation, and also answer to Pak Hekal question. Also, I say for non-engineering things, I think for vulnerable, there are many types of vulnerable person, and also on the awareness of people in Japan. Even we have very high technology, but still we have people who are more vulnerable. So, and still not less, how to say, focus. Even the disaster sector manager, I think same in Indonesia, we have, for each city we have disaster management sector, and we have social welfare sector, but they don't talk each other somehow. They didn't believe that we have LGBTQ people in Japan, or they don't think that elderly or people we have more difficulty, something like that. So I think this still one challenging on social perspective. And for engineering perspective, I would like to repeat my talk that, for example, civil rights, we didn't consider when we built the new seawall. So yeah, this one thing. Second thing is that there are many non-seismic, non-earthquake tsunami happened in this 3, 4, 5 years. Still, we are not understand well what are the mechanism. So yeah, I think these also things that we would like to understand more in the future. Of course, we have sensors. So even whatever the source of tsunamis are, we have sensor we can detect, and we give the the warning. But for in your country or other country, when you have not many sensors, so I think still then they have to rely on the people, local people, or local warning by local people, or the awareness to evacuate, whether as soon as they receive the warning or feel the natural warning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Professor Anawar Supasri, Dr. Rina Suryani. I believe that we need to conclude our session and wrap up today's enriching discussion. First, I'd like to express our collective appreciation to our speakers for their invaluable contribution, and to all participants for their engaging question and insights. So that will wrap up our panel session, first panel session. And next, we're gonna commencing the next panel session 2. But stay tuned with us while we are gonna play the celebrating compilation video from our college. And I give to the operator.
Congratulations to the Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Team on your 17th anniversary. It was so inspiring to visit your research center and witness all the incredible work you do. Learning more about the impact of disasters in Indonesia during my trip there, like the Banda Aceh tsunami, just highlighted the importance of your work even more. So I wish the Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Team many more successful years.
And congratulations from me as well for all your achievements within the TDMRC, for being an innovator in the field of disaster science and improving communities' resilience through education with your skills and knowledge.
On behalf of the Griffith team, we thank you, the whole center. So many fun years to be working with awesome colleagues at TDMRC, especially the TBO team. Your passion and dedication are really, truly inspiring. Here's to more fun karaoke at your auditorium, and also more years in discovery in disaster science field, and create a disaster-free world. And congratulations again, happy anniversary.
Congratulations on the 70th year of the establishment of TDMRC. My name is Daisuke Sasaki. I'm an associate professor at the International Research Institute of Disaster Science Areas, Tokyo University. I'm very glad to collaborate with you up until now and from now on. I wish TDMRC continued success and further prosperity. Thank you.
Dear Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center, I wish you a happy anniversary, and I look forward to future collaborations in Banda Aceh, which is the world's tsunami and disaster mitigation laboratory. You have really thrived in the last 17 years since your initiation back in 2006 after the tsunami disaster in 2004. I wish you all the best from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello, happy birthday for the 17th anniversary, Samsidik and TDMRC colleagues. I wish you all the best and look forward for future collaboration.
Hi everyone, I am Ben from UGM, and I'm here to celebrate TDMRC 17th anniversary. And for Professor Samsidik and team, thank you for your incredible work. Here to many more years of success. Cheers to everyone and see you again.
Hello, my name is Edward Mende from the Gambia, a PhD student in climate change and disaster risk management, University of Lome. I attribute my success in research to TDMRC's unflinching support, and I seize this opportunity to wish TDMRC a happy 17th anniversary. Terima kasih.
Hello all, this is Eric Mas from the International Research Institute of Disaster Science in Tohoku University. I would like to congratulate the Tsunami and Disaster Mitigation Research Center for their 17th year anniversary. I hope to see you soon in Banda Aceh. See you.
Deepak Shamsidik and colleagues, congratulations on your 17th anniversary, and wishing us many more years of collaboration in the future.
Dear Pak Shamsidik and colleagues, greetings from the National Academy of Sciences here in Washington, D.C. On this special anniversary day, you can be very proud of what you've built, the research discoveries and policy recommendations you've made, and the many linkages you've established. We are so honored that with the support of the U.S. Agency for International Development, our peer program was helpful in the development of your center. I only wish that I had had the chance to come to Banda Aceh and visit you in person. Through your work, you are doing such a great service for the people of Indonesia and of other areas where tsunamis occur. Thank you for your dedication, and we wish you continued success as you celebrate this 17th anniversary of your center. Selamat ulang tahun, teman-teman terkasih.
Greetings from the University of Plymouth Coast Laboratory. We recognise the importance of TDMRC's work over the last 17 years, and we wish you well as you continue that work into the future.
Greetings, my friends at TDMRC. I would like to wish you all congratulations for your 17th anniversary, and I wish you continued successes in the years to come. And I'm hopeful for more collaborations between us in the future. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is Ditya from Psychology Universitas Gadjah Mada in Yogyakarta. I wish to congratulate TDMRC for the 17th anniversary. Congratulations for all your great works, all the innovations that you've created, and all the positive impacts that you've brought to the communities affected by disasters, particularly tsunami in Indonesia. And I wish you continued success, making more innovations and continued inspiring others, and particularly making impacts to those affected by disasters in Indonesia. Very well done, and congratulations to the MRC.
Hello my friend, happy 17th birthday to TDMRC. Keep inspiring with your dedication to reducing disaster risk and protecting the community. May your commitment to excellence bring resilience to the community and massive development in educating others. And also, may the coming year be filled with great success and progress. Thank you.
Profesor Emily So adalah Profesor Teknik Arsitektur di Departemen Arsitektur dan Direktur Pusat Resiko di Lingkungan Buatan Universitas Cambridge. Sebelum datang ke Cambridge, ia bekerja di Arab sebagai insinyur geoteknik senior dan menjadi anggota Medienhall di Survei Geologi AS dari tahun 2009 sampai tahun 2011. Profesor Emily So adalah seorang insinyur sipil dengan pengalaman menilai dan mengelola resiko dan ketahanan perkotaan. Beliau telah aktif terlibat dalam komunitas yang terkena dampak gempa bumi di berbagai belahan dunia dengan fokus menerapkan karyanya untuk melakukan perbaikan nyata dalam keselamatan seismik. Menyelamatkan nyawa dari gempa bumi adalah prioritas dan motivasi penelitiannya. Bidang keahliannya adalah estimasi korban dalam pemodelan kerugian akibat gempa, dan penelitiannya telah meningkatkan pemahaman tentang hubungan antara kematian dan cedera setelah gempa bumi. Beliau juga terlibat dalam kolaborasi interdisipliner dan internasional melalui pekerjaannya. Profesor Alison Rabi. Alison memimpin proyek Stormlamp yang didanai Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, sebuah kolaborasi dengan UCL and Exeter yang memeriksa pembebanan gelombang pada mercusuar batu yang terbuka dan respons struktural selanjutnya. Namun, ketertarikannya terhadap gelombang ekstrim juga mencakup dampak tsunami di wilayah pesisir. Beliau telah memainkan peran penting dalam sejumlah inisiatif kolaboratif dengan tim investigasi lapangan teknik gempa Inggris. Setelah tsunami, ia menghasilkan temuan penelitian tentang kode desain komparatif untuk struktur pantai dan ditampilkan dalam film National Geographic tentang bencana tersebut.
Thank you for the short video. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very good morning to our wonderful speakers in UK. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the webinar seminar series, TDMRC, the 29. And today, within the 17 years of TDMRC anniversary, we are raising the topic of 17 years of TDMRC Universitas Syakwala, long-term disaster recovery process, lesson learned from disaster-affected area. I'm Rizana Rosemary. I'm very delighted to be here and assigned to chair and facilitated our second session of this seminar series. Thank you very much for our two wonderful speakers who have attended online today, and also our seminars participants that have joined online. So welcome. It's really a wonderful afternoon after you have heard the first session of our seminar series. And after we listen to our guests or our speakers present their papers, we will open a Q&A session. So please, for those of you, your participants, you may leave your question and comments on the chat box, both in English and in Indonesia. So you could also place your comments and your questions in Indonesia, and we would happily translate to you. So like you have seen in the videos, we have two incredible speakers today, far from UK. Welcome, Professor Emily So and Professor Alison Raby. How are you both today?
Good, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting us to this session.
Nice to meet you both here. So maybe before we start, like the first session, would be possible if we could have a photo session, the committee with all the speakers. So maybe for every participant joining online, can you have your camera on? So we will have our photo session. First, still photo, and the second one maybe a video and expressing our greetings to the 17 years of TDMRC's birthday. Would that be okay? Okay, who would like to give the code? 1, 2, 3. Okay, next one, the video. Let us say together, happy 17 years TDMRC. Would that be okay? Okay, counting 1, 2, 3.
Happy 17th year,
TDMRC. Okay, thank you very much. So we have two wonderful, beautiful
17 years and
first, I would like to shortly introduce, although that you have seen in the video, we have Professor Emily So. Yeah, she's a professor of architectural engineering, director of teaching, and deputy head of the School of Arts and Humanities. And she's also a director of studies in architecture for Magdalene College and St. Edmund's College. Is that right? And she's a fellow and admission tutor for Access at Magdalene College, a chartered civil engineer and director of the Cambridge University Center for Risk in the Built Environment, or CURB. Welcome, Professor Emily So. So she's going to present her paper today, reflecting on the 17 years of the TDMRC's experience in disaster. Lessons from the earthquake have we really learned from past events? So without further ado, 20 minutes is yours, Professor Emily So, and the Zoom is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for inviting me to share my thoughts on lessons from earthquakes. I have been in the field working in earthquake engineering and disaster reduction for over 20 years. And as part of that, have been, as Professor Raby, will be talking later, looking at earthquakes from the field post-event. So this is really a summary of my thoughts of what we really have learned and what we need to do more of in line with the webinar's title of looking at recovery processes and lessons learned from disasters. So thank you again, and I will begin by adding my own congratulations on the 17th birthday of TDMRC. I think it's very evident from the video footage that we saw just now before this session how well regarded the research centre is, and long may it continue. And I look forward to collaborations, but also the next 17 years to come. So many congratulations. We don't have to look very far back to really see the consequence, the impact of earthquakes and the natural environment. This is a slide taken from Morocco, an earthquake that happened earlier this year in the rural parts of the country, where the engineering, the technology that we're so used to as academics and engineers in the field have not really penetrated to areas of around the world that are suffering the most from these events. And it's only really in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years that the world has really paid attention to natural disasters. I think in many countries where, like Indonesia and Japan, where there have been natural disasters and hazards from the past, there is a constant knowledge and acquisition of information and resources dedicated to disasters. But it's only in the last 5 or 7 years, as I said, that the world has paid attention. And the reason why I say that is because now, year on year, natural disasters and extreme weather events feature in the top 10 risks of the World Economic Forum. They meet every year in Switzerland, and they talk about how they would collectively resource and finance work towards these risks that are facing not just individual countries, but as we've learned from COVID and also from large events like the Boxing Day tsunami, we're not in isolation anymore. Earthquakes, tsunamis, flood events affect not just a locality of where it happens, but it penetrates through to other countries and around the world. So this is something that obviously is very important to study. It's very important to have an understanding of, but actually to more than just the science. So I bring this slide, which I show a lot of my students, and many of them are toddlers or, you know, children at the time of this event, you know, some years back now. And it reminds us of the force of nature, that the earthquake itself in this Tohoku event in East Japan didn't cause much damage, even though it was the 4th largest recorded earthquake ever recorded in the world. It was the ensuing tsunami that really did a lot of damage, that had a big impact on the loss of life. And as a community, they're still recovering. They're still trying to make sense of what to do next, how to really act towards a resilient future. And myself, I was in Turkey early this year, after the earthquake in February. This affected a region that is not the top priority for Turkey in terms of earthquake preparedness and expected earthquakes. But this was a series of 3 earthquakes that were over 7 in magnitude, and it had a huge impact, not just in terms of loss of lives. 50,000 people died from this earthquake, but also in the confidence of the Turkish community in their own science and engineering, because the Turkish engineers, colleagues of mine in the country, are amongst the best in the world in their research, in the dissemination of their work through building codes and regulations, but it's again not being seen in the field. And this is something that we feel very strongly about, and this is because we have imperfect knowledge. I think any scientist will tell you that we do the best we can, but at any given time, we only have what we know, and it's through instrumentation, and we're getting better at it, but still there's a lot of things that are unknown. So a group that I belong to and the TDMRC collaborate with is called the Earthquake Engineering Field Investigations Team, EFIT, and we are a group of engineers in the UK and in Europe that go to disaster areas post earthquakes to really try to learn from the events, to see whether the things that we expect to happen are happening, and things also to note down any surprises, anything that we didn't think would be possible. And so I would just want to show you a few slides from my field experience in Kahramanmaraş earthquake sequence in February 2023. And a team of engineers, seismologists, social scientists went to the area in April and then again in June to really document what's happening. This is a slide from 2 of our team members. And as you can see, the damage was intense. There was a lot of pancake collapses, structures that were not built with the right column and beam connections, and simply with the strong motions, the columns gave way and the floors collapsed on top of each other. There were also evidence, as with previous Turkish earthquakes, that we see repeated mistakes being made of soft stories, so a ground floor that's been opened out for shop windows, for greater transparency, perhaps for commercial uses, and therefore providing essentially a weakest link for the earthquake to affect the column joints, and therefore collapses ensue. But we were also witnessing bad construction practice. So in looking at the actual building material, what we saw was smooth reinforcement bars, aggregates of concrete, an engineering material that requires quite precise prescription, a recipe, if you like, of the material. But instead of these kind of fine aggregates and coarse aggregates, which is essential for the bonding and the strength of the concrete, we found rounded stone like the one that you see on the right of the screen. And when the local authorities were coring through the collapsed buildings, what they were able to find were these cores, again on the right of the screen, of big river stone. This is in an area where there used to be old riverbeds. And so essentially all material that was found in situ were used as part of the concrete mix. And these 6 centimeter cobbles, if you like, do nothing to the strength of the concrete. It doesn't add to it. It actually diminishes that strength quite significantly. And what you can see here in the slide is that Turkish authorities and ministries staff are coring these through these collapsed material, and we'll be doing testing of these cores to really find out what the discrepancy is, what's the difference between it should be designed for these buildings and what has been implemented on site. But what I want to show here with this slide is that, and I show this to my students a lot, is that it shouldn't, and it really shouldn't be this way, because as engineers and architects, we know how to build against natural disasters like earthquakes. And you can see in the foreground a completely collapsed pancake building, but in the background, a building of similar height and footprint that has survived and remain intact in this area. And what's also interesting and very typical of this area and also many countries around the world, if you look further back, you can see reinforcement bars at the top of a roof of a building just to the kind of left, the background. And this is again a practice that is very key to Turkey, is an incremental building practice. So people build a couple of stories, a few years later they build more because they have more money, or their family expands, and they are therefore building on top of existing buildings. And this creates a problem. This kind of incremental building practice also creates a problem in terms of the integrity and the structural integrity of the building. And just a couple more slides on the earthquake itself. One thing we were able to do, and things that we do when we go to the field, is try to compare actual recordings of the earthquake to the code, but also to the actual response of the building. So on the left, you can see response spectra. So those red and orange lines is what the building code asks for, but the actual black squiggly lines is what has been recorded. So as I said, with the imperfect knowledge, this earthquake far exceeded both in the vertical and the horizontal components, the building code that was expected of the region. So again, for the seismologists, for the seismological community, this is very important, because these codes, or the building ground motions, were based on our understanding of the earthquake potential in this area. And it's obviously from this sequence itself, it was inadequate in many ways. And you can see that the picture on the right, a building that's literally lifted off the vertical component of this earthquake, so strong that the building lifted from the columns and actually landed next to the columns it was supposed to support. So after each of these events, we come back from the field, we report on the mission to the scientific community, to people of interest, and public. More and more, we are actually talking to the public through media, but also through reporting. And we collate the lessons that are learned from the events. And within EFIT, we have been in the field for the last 40 years. We've gone to more than 30 countries, documenting what's happened, and from each of these events we're able to come up with a set of lessons that are learned from them. We contribute to government documents, to the World Bank, in terms of learning from disasters, But the title of my talk really is to think about what have we really learned and are we doing enough? And I think this is the second part of my talk that I just want to quickly talk through, because as an engineer and somebody, as I said, who's worked in the field for a long time, I feel there are things that we have done well in, but there are also things that are still to be done, and we need to figure out what it is that we are missing, and are we still lacking in terms of the actions that are being implemented in the field. So back in 2017, in preparation for a book, Professor Redmond Spencer, myself in Cambridge, did a survey and asked colleagues of ours from around the world about successes and failures of earthquake protection in their own country. And I won't go through the questions, but what I want to draw your attention to is this graph of successes and failures of earthquakes in terms of unsafe buildings. And what we've been able to do is group these responses from our colleagues from around the world into 3 categories: high achievers, countries with potential progress, and countries where we really identify problems and growing risk. And if you look to the right of this graph, you can see that for places like Colombia and Nepal and Pakistan, colleagues of ours who live and work in these countries are saying that over 80% of the buildings in their country are unsafe to earthquakes. And this is a huge problem because of urbanization and also because of the lack of awareness of the public to this risk, and also problems with building control. So corruption and other forms of problems within the building process is really important to note. And we summarize this in this book, which was published a couple of years ago, on why do buildings collapse, and really try to collate lessons that we've learned from around the world to really think about how we can make a better future. And one of the things we recognized when we were writing this is that in places like Nepal, where there's still a problem with unsafe buildings, there is actually some success in terms of reconstruction. So after the 2015 earthquake, the Nepalese government set up this program of rebuilding and training local masons. And in collaboration with NSET, which is a technological group that already exists, they were able to completely transform, I guess, the building of masonry housing in the area. But it relies a lot on the government funding, and really in terms of building back better, unless we found the communities themselves have an awareness and a will, if you like, a motivation to do better and improve their design, is not going to really work. So what we identified in the book is a set of people that we called game changers, people who have actively themselves been pushing on certain aspects of earthquake safety. And as I said, the National Society for Earthquake Technology, NSET, is a key part of the Nepalese earthquake protection motivation at the moment, and is led, and it was led by Professor Ahmed Dixit, and his focus is on community-driven approaches. And I think this resonates a lot with what the TDMRC are doing as well, in terms of really educating and thinking about how we can stay away from remittance and international aid, but focus on locally driven initiatives and locally resourced initiatives. But we can't rely on individual efforts because it's not sustainable or scalable globally. So I wanted to show you something that I've been doing with the Chinese group on earthquake protection. And this happened after the Ludian earthquake in 2014. The government built a set of housing post-earthquake in valley areas in the area, and moving the local communities to these towns that were entirely new built and were paid for by the government. So in one way, you can say this is great because it means that people don't have to find the funding to rehouse themselves, and it happened very quickly after the earthquake. But what it does deplete the community of is a cultural reference, and they all got moved to an area that they're not familiar with. they were all mountainous region, small minority groups, and they really didn't have a link to these villages that essentially were formed post-earthquake, towns and villages. So me and colleagues from China, from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and also from the Kunming University of Technology, came up with a scheme to build with local materials, and this won the World Building of the Year in 2017. And Chair, I know I'm probably running out of time, but if I may, I just want to show you a very short film of this project, and then I'll end my talk there with just a couple more slides.
Sure. Can you play the video?
Yeah, it should be playing now. Can you see the video?
Not yet. We still see your white slide.
Okay, let me try. Let me try again. Thank you. Let me just try again. Sorry, it might be that I need to. Oopsie. Just give me a second. You still see the white slide, right?
Yes. Is it a hyperlink?
It is, but I think it's not working. So let me just get out of here, and then I'll try to. I'm sorry. Obviously, I should have tested this before the session. My apologies. Okay, let me try again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll play it now. My apologies, it's not playing for some reason because I can't click on it. There.
But we cannot hear the sound.
I think we just have to rely on the subtitles because it's not coming through. Thank you very much. And I hope you were able to catch most of that. I'm sorry that there are problems with the sound. What I want to really highlight here is that sorry, I just went a bit too far. Just observing in my mind is not enough anymore. I think we learn lots of lessons from these events, but actually collaboration with the local NGOs and the local research center like TDMRC is really key to progress this learning beyond just scientific papers and reports. I think there's a real call for action from our part to make sure that our knowledge, our collective knowledge of what's happening around the world is disseminated and instilled within communities that are most affected by disasters. And one of the reasons why we won this award was because of the low cost, the local kind of focus on this, low technology, low cost, and the local remit and the local focus so that they can themselves replicate these solutions to mitigate against disasters. And I show this slide because I think students, young researchers are the future of continuing this work. And at the University of Cambridge, we've just launched Design Tripos, where we are bringing together all the findings from different research themes to try and educate future designers to make sure that they have this in mind, that the world is not the same anymore. We have to incorporate a lot of extreme events and climate change into the thinking. And actually the City of London in the UK where I live is also adopting a retrofit first policy, which means that we're not building new things anymore. We're trying to rethink how we reuse and retrofit old technology. And lastly, I think I'll actually end with this slide to say that I feel that lessons are learned from disasters, but what we really are challenged with now as researchers is an awareness challenge. So we must make people aware what the physical constraints are, what the social issues are, and trying to get the politicians and people around us to help us do that. And raising awareness is really the first step. The technological solutions alone is not going to help reduce disasters. It's really the dialogues and coming out with creative and low cost and culturally sensitive and local solutions that we can do better in the future. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm sorry if I've gone over the time.
Thank you very much, Professor Emily. It's a very wonderful and outstanding presentation. Let us give a big applause. I really enjoy listening to it, especially for those powerful slides with those pictures. For us, maybe from the social science, we don't know much about the terminology in engineering, but then you're looking at those slides that you show powerful pictures of building collapse, that we could understood the importance of understanding the risk of unsafe building. And then also congratulations on the project itself that you've made and you show within the video. It is very interesting, and you call that your key call is that there is a need for collaboration, not only with the scholars around the world, but also within the local community. And also this collective knowledge that you have, we need to disseminate it with the community who really is going to be the only beneficiaries. Thank you. We'll elaborate that again in our discussion. Thank you, Professor Emily. And now we're going to continue to our next speaker, Professor Alison Rabi. You're here. Thank you. Yes, Professor Alison Rabi is a professor in environmental fluid mechanics, School of Engineering, Computing, and Mathematics, Faculty of Science and Engineering. She is a chartered engineer also, and she's a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineering. And today, she's going to present her paper within the topic, with the title, Recovery from Tsunami Disasters, Comparison from Indonesia, Thailand, and Japan. So Professor Alison Rabi, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you. Can I just check that you can hear me okay?
Very clear, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to share in the birthday celebrations of TDMRC today. So we have worked with TDMRC over the last few years, and it's been such a privilege. Thank you. And also just to say that I very much enjoyed the two presentations from the earlier part of the session. I was actually battling my way through an Atlantic storm on the way to work in the southwest of the UK. But I very much enjoyed hearing Anawat's presentation, and I've taken the opportunity while Anawat has been in the UK this year to find out more about the situation in Japan. And it was also a very nice presentation from Dr. Okhtari. It was very interesting to see the comprehensive description of recovery in Banda Aceh. Emily and I have worked a little bit with EFIT over the last few years, but it was very nice to hear about her work in China and obviously that well-deserved prize. So the contents of my presentation, I'll try and stick to time. I have a timer here. Emily's covered some of the background to EFIT, so I won't say much about that, but just to give the context of the recovery missions. And then I'll show essentially a comparison between the different locations that we've visited recently in terms of spatial planning, design codes, warning systems, education and training, the evacuation structures, morphological response, and coastal defences. I should say that we also covered buildings in our study, and if you're interested in that aspect, then I would encourage you to watch an EFIT video that was filmed on the 20th of June this year that presented the recovery of building construction in those different locations. So you can find that on the internet on the iStructE website. As some of you know, EFIT, the Earthquake and Engineering Field Investigation Team missions, go back many years to the early 1980s, about 40 years ago now. But I think it focused exclusively on earthquakes until the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004. So subsequent to the Indonesian tsunami, we have also gone and looked at damage due to tsunamis. And I've been involved in several of these post-tsunami observation missions. And then more recently, EFIT have been involved in recovery missions, so where we go to locations to see how recovery has taken place a number of years after the event, sometimes as little as 2 years, but sometimes as much as 5 years. So we visited Italy, and Tohoku was a recovery mission in 2013, and also following the Gorkha, Nepal earthquake. And the importance of these recovery missions is to see or try to gauge what has been learnt, and Emily touched upon that. So what have we really learnt? Have we built back better, and what's the training looking like? The recovery mission to Indonesia and Thailand, these are locations that we visited within a relatively short space of time, nearly a year ago now, towards the end of 2022. So we visited Banda Aceh and Palu Bay, and then the southwest of Thailand, Phuket and Khao Lak. And so we could make some comparisons in the different events in different geographical locations. And then added to that, I have been, as I said, working with Anawat to try to also compare and contrast the recovery from Japan. Look at the Great East Japanese earthquake and tsunami. So we're bringing together all of these and seeing what we can learn by comparing and contrasting recovery in those different locations. So this was the mission team. Well, there were 3 different mission teams. So we physically visited the different locations. I haven't got time to go through all of the details now, but you can watch it on the video, I guess. Excuse me. And then we had a remote team that supported us. And as I mentioned, we had the Japanese perspective from Dr. Sapasri. And if you want any further details, there's a QR code, and there are some reports that we produced in the past. But without further delay, let's have a look at some of the comparisons. So first of all, looking at the spatial planning and development, And my slides, I've tried to represent the different locations in the vague geographical region. So I'll discuss the situation in Indonesia first, move on to Thailand, and finish with the Japanese situation. So if I just, here we go. So we've got a bit of a mix of images here. So on this part here, we have the master plan from Banda Aceh dating from 2009. We heard from one of the earlier speakers about the 1 kilometre wide buffer strip and the fact that it's under pressure due to the land value, but also the fact that newcomers are coming in and they don't have that that cultural memory of that dreadful event. When we were in Banda Aceh, we were told by one of the planners about the concept of having a new town further inland. There is also the refuge buildings, which we'll come to in more detail in a moment, and the escape routes. So there are, they have a capacity that can be increased in size with emergency contraflows and mobile barriers. The other image here is taken from Palu City. So in the coastal rehabilitation project, they are discussing having a multi-layered approach to defence, and that will be familiar from what you heard in Anawat Supasri's talk also. So you can see that there are some sort of plantations here, mangroves, some sort of embankment or revetment, and then further. And this section here is actually in front of the Mercure Hotel, and that was a hotel that suffered significant damage in the 2018 event. Moving on now to Thailand. These are results of a simulation based on the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. You can see the blue line, which represents the extent of the inundation zone. And these are results taken from 2003 and 2009. The red polygons represent houses, and the green polygons represent hotels. And so you can see, going from 2003 to 2009, the fact that people's houses are safely out of the inundation zone, but the hotels and the tourists are well within the inundation zone. And that's important in terms of the exposure risks for tourists. I think roughly half of the fatalities in Thailand were actually overseas visitors to the country. So the tourists now definitely have a greater exposure risk than even before. In terms in Japan, as Anawat explained very well, there is this multi-layered defense approach. So here's the sea over here from where the tsunami will come. There's the coastal embankment, and that's been sized to protect against a 150-year return interval tsunami or a 50-year storm surge. And these were rebuilt very, very quickly along the coast. Then further inland of that, there is a coastal disaster prevention forest. They already existed prior to 2011, but they were largely destroyed. The tree roots were very shallow, and that's thought to perhaps be in some locations due to a high water table. So they were rebuilt 2 to 3 meters higher and replanted. So they are now reforested. And then further inland of that, 2 elevated roads. The prefectural road has got an elevation of 7 meters. And there are provision of vertical evacuation structures, which I'll mention in a moment. So that's a comparison of the different spatial planning and the development in those different locations. In terms of the development of the tsunami design codes, well, we have a vertical timeline here with some of the recent tsunamis identified. In the shaded boxes are the new or revised design codes issued within the relevant country. And in white are the US codes that have been incorporated. So looking first at a situation in Indonesia, while they've had seismic design codes, or while you've had seismic design codes dating back to the 1960s, codes addressing the design codes for tsunami loads were actually first published about 11 years ago, and they were informed by the US FEMA 646. In Thailand, again, seismic codes dating back to the 1980s, but tsunami codes only considered since 2008. They are mostly applied to reinforced concrete structures, such as tsunami evacuation towers, which we'll see later. The code doesn't yet consider the probabilistic tsunami hazard map, and people are actually encouraged to build away from coasts and rivers, and that people should preferentially evacuate inland. Now, Japan has the most highly developed building codes for seismic and tsunami load considerations, with significant developments following the Indian Ocean tsunami and the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. There's a new guideline concerning structural damage to tsunami evacuation buildings, and there is consideration for buoyancy forces, which can lead to overturning of the buildings, even of reinforced concrete buildings, as was seen in 2011, for sliding, effective building openings, scour and debris loading. However, what's most notable is there hasn't been a significant impact internationally of these comprehensive design codes. So that's something that really does need to be considered. And events such as this birthday celebration of TDMRC is a really important vehicle for widely disseminating the comprehensive design codes and standards that exist in Japan. In terms of warning systems, beginning in Indonesia, there's a people-centered system which requires considerable coordination between different organizations. There are different principles in this system: risk knowledge, risk monitoring, response capability, including the plans. Now, this sophisticated system, this inner choose system, wasn't effective back in 2018. And it might have been because of an ineffective single siren that was in Palu Bay, Palu City, and that was about 1 kilometre inland. There are 4 stages to that early warning system. The classification in stage 1 for 3 different levels of tsunami. That's not dissimilar to some of what is seen in Japan. Moving all the way on to stage 4, and this is something that happens after the event. Now, in a place like Palu Bay, the tsunami occurred just 4 minutes after the ground shaking. So you can see that we need a really rapid response. Moving to Thailand. They've got a system based on seismic and sea level monitoring, which is also reliant on sirens. They have a network of 62 of them, and they have SMS information that gets conveyed. They have the benefit of having a longer warning time than Indonesia, about 2 hours. When we visited Thailand, I wasn't particularly aware of the warning systems, and I was on the ground on 2 Wednesdays when the siren was supposed to be sounded in the tourism areas where we were focused, but I didn't hear it in either the locations that we were based in. In Japan, there was an admission that the information transmission system was inadequate in 2011. That has been massively updated and revised now. There are 3 levels of the tsunami warnings, which I think Anawat mentioned earlier. There are 79 outdoor speakers. and they've all been reconstructed to be taller and stronger. There are also warnings by email, website, Twitter. It's all centrally managed. There will be helicopters, fire engines that go out. The information will also be communicated into people's homes where they've got their system set up. So a really, really comprehensive system there. In terms of the evacuation training, in Indonesia, training has been done dating back, in fact, to 2012. In 2018 in Palu Bay, when the event happened, there was some confusion about the actual actions that needed to be taken. There was some confusion about was it the same event as they had rehearsed for. Also, not everybody had been involved in that training. It was very good to hear earlier on in this this event today how the training has been working out in Banda Aceh. I don't have that information in my presentation. In Thailand, there are annual tabletop exercises where they have training for government and the local residents. There are evacuation drills, but the evacuation drills are not seen to be particularly realistic because they get the people involved in the evacuations all to come to the same location, which would be the beach, and to evacuate from that location. And you can appreciate that's not a particularly realistic scenario where people will be evacuating from different locations, maybe concerned about picking up children from school and all of those human issues. Oops. In Japan, the drills began in 2012, and in Sendai, where Tohoku University is based, there are annual drills on the 5th of November, which is the World Tsunami Awareness Day. They use the evacuation facilities and they cover more than just tsunamis in their evacuation drills. They've looked at the effect of evacuating by vehicles, and as they anticipated, that led to traffic jams, and actually people are encouraged to evacuate on foot. There are hazard maps that are issued freely and in fact annually, so that if people move to an area within the previous few months, they get the hazard map information, and in that they get information on where the closest evacuation structures are and the warnings to follow. There's much more I could say on that, but I need to move on. So the evacuation structures, there's a question mark around dedicated evacuation structures versus multi-purpose ones. And we visited some dedicated structures when we were in Banda Aceh. And this is the situation also in Palu, where we visited, where another of the teams visited. So these are dedicated single-use evacuation structures. They would have an elevation typically of 10 to 12 meters. They might be reinforced concrete or steel. Some of the earlier structures in Banda Aceh were built with the support and guidance from the Japanese government. However, what we heard on the ground in Banda Aceh in particular was the fact that people didn't have an affinity with these structures, and so didn't naturally want to evacuate to these structures because they weren't familiar with them. And also there might have been a psychological issue with just more of a greater instinct into running inland horizontally rather than running vertically. Some of that might be to do with the fact that there are not very many very tall structures in that location because of ground conditions. This is the recently built Islamic State University building, which has an evacuation structure which can actually support 800 people. In Thailand, similar situation, dedicated evacuation structures, but because of the lack of those structures in the area, particularly around Patong, they are identifying government structures that might be suitable for this evacuation. And then in Japan, they have had more time to develop their vertical evacuation structures. I just want to highlight some of these things here. The fact that in Japan, which can suffer from colder weather than in Indonesia and Thailand, They have covered some of the areas to provide some protection from rain and snow. They have some emergency supplies in terms of blankets, extra power from gas cartridges, lighting. There are some balcony areas which can be used to rescue people who might be in the flood waters. So I think there's some learning around those evacuation structures which will be relevant for other locations. Finishing now just quickly on the morphological response. Oh, that's my timer, I'm out of time. On the morphological response, so in the mixed picture here. So in Indonesia, there was some areas that were accreting, so sediment buildup has been a problem in some areas, but some sediment erosion has been a problem in other areas, and it really depends on what part of the coastline that we're looking at. So here's an example here of an accreting coastline, which is actually covering a man-made coastal defence. Don't have time to go through these in too much detail, but Thailand has lots of rudimentary structures which hotel owners are putting in place, and there is significant erosion. This is a photograph from Pakar Cape, which is famous from the movement of boulders due to the tsunami, and there was a great deal of erosion there. And actually this was a situation in Kesnumi that that Anawat mentioned earlier, so I won't dwell on that. This is my last slide of information. So in terms of the coastal defences, when we went to Indonesia, we saw some examples of coastal defences that have been damaged, not by tsunamis, but by just from storm wave damage. And there are no dedicated tsunami defences in Indonesia and Thailand. And as was suggested by a previous speaker, in the areas of the world which are not quite as wealthy, it's probably not going to be possible, or is it going to be even desirable to have tsunami defences? I'll just finish now on Taro in Japan. These are extremely impressive new structures that have been put in place. The 10-metre wall dates back to the 1940s, I think. And that was damaged, but did generally survive the 2011 tsunami. But in the last few years, they have built this rather enormous 14.7 metre elevation wall that we're able to walk around, which provides significant defence for this city of Taro. And then we're going to try to bring this together in a journal paper and also publicise it more widely. And we're going to compare and contrast against those different criteria that we were considering. And as I mentioned, we also looked at buildings. But I'll put these up, and then perhaps if you want more details, then you can look on the video later and just pause on those. And we're just comparing across the different locations. So thank you very much. Sorry for going slightly over time. And once again, happy birthday, TDMRC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Alison Rabi. Please give a big applause for her great presentation. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. You have really give enlightening knowledge for us, understanding your project, comparing the three regions that is affected by the earthquake and tsunami, which is Thailand, Indonesia, and Japan, throughout looking at the spatial planning and development, the tsunami design codes, the warning system, the evacuation training, the evacuation structure, morphological structure, and the coastal defenses. So very interesting. And I also gained so much from that presentation. So now we have around about 15 minutes for a question and answer session. So I will leave the floor. I'll give the floor for any questions. If you would like to have a direct questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, you could also place your questions or your comments within the chat box in this Zoom, and then we'll read it for you. Any questions? Okay, while waiting for the others, maybe I would like to start. Oh, there is one question from, let us see. Haikal, oh, Pak Haikal, please, Pak Haikal.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rizana, and thank you very much for very nice presentation from Prof. Emily and also Prof. Alison. Can you hear my voice? Is it too small? Okay.
It's a little faint, but yeah, just
okay.
about.
Yeah. When I saw the presentation from Prof. Emily, I've been thinking that if it's possible that we can have some characteristic on localized strong motions, such as we ever recorded strong motion hotspots, such as the Menong earthquake in Taiwan in 2016, which resulted in a very high casualty and damaged building as well. So such local features, how we can detect them and how we can, in sense of structural engineering, cope with that problems. And one more question for Prof. Alison about the early warning. We experience different type of tsunami, luckily. Like we experienced the tsunami generated by the megatrust, and we also experienced the tsunami that generated by the sub-area landslides, such as the Krakatau. And we also experienced the tsunami from the strike-slip events, which induced a landslide as well. And as you know, our early warning systems are developed based on the megatrust events. So those are much different characteristics. So do you have any other observation around the world based on your research that maybe such as in use of the marine cables or communication cables that can be used for the early warning systems? And do you have an idea for this problem? Yeah.
Sorry. Recovering from something.
That's my questions. Yeah, thank you.
Alison, should I go first or have a drink of water? I thank you very much for your question. That's a very good insight into what the main problems are, and the characterizations of local damage hotspots is something that is very topical at the moment within the structural engineering world. As technology and sensors, especially seismic sensors, are getting cheaper to install, there are many initiatives, especially in the US, to do structural monitoring, what we call health monitoring of buildings, so that with the building stock that obviously is designed to a certain code and aspect, we are able to monitor even from small events what's happening, comparing it with what we expect to happen. I think this would identify, hopefully, these hotspots that you talk about. But before the building is built, I think one of the things that we're not doing enough of, and this is something we saw in Turkey as well, is to really think about localized soil conditions. So liquefaction, soft soil, kind of alluvial soft soils have a very high propensity of amplifying the ground motions. And what we found in Turkey, which was very disappointing and very surprising, was that a lot of the damaged buildings or the areas did not have this information. So the locals were saying, oh, we didn't know that we had soft soil, even though, of course, they were built in a old riverbed. So I think this awareness and also insisting on having more information on soil in the first place before the buildings are built, but actually doing the structural monitoring afterwards is really key to reducing those catastrophic local damage that you were mentioning in Taiwan as well. Because as a kind of generalized earthquake, maybe we're okay, but these individual collapses could be prevented with more monitoring. So thank you for that.
Yes,
okay, I have my voice back now. Yes, no, thank you for the question. I would say that that's an active area of research at the moment. So the UK and India at the moment have got a call out looking at essentially sort of multi-hazards, and I'm aware that some of the hazards could include things like submarine landslides, subaerial landslides, the UK has also been funding a lot of work in the last few years looking at sensors. So implementing sensors in landslides, and we've been involved in one at Plymouth University looking at landslides and debris flow. But I would say it's pretty much cutting edge, and the work that we've done has shown actually many of the challenges as opposed to effective practice. So I would say it's not yet ready to be implemented, but it is an area that we're definitely looking at. But it's a difficult problem because you're going to have the hazard arriving much more quickly and without warning. So yeah, it's definitely on the radar in the UK funding community.
Thank you, Professor Allison, and also yes. Any more questions? If not, still have a little more time. And I would like to ask my pending question just now. Professor Allison, it's just very interesting, especially the last slides that you mentioned about the coastal, the coastal defenses, especially in Japan. There are two walls. The one that was the 10 meters wall was collapsed during the 2011 tsunami, right? And then they built another one. So I remember that I met a professor from Japan. Sorry, I forgot from the university he came from, but it's interestingly because he's doing his research about surfing. How the local community come back to the beach and do surf, and he also conducted a research in Banda Aceh, and he mentioned that actually the Japanese people are quite resistant about the wall itself. That the new wall, the 14.7 meters wall developed. I was wondering when it was developed, were there any communication with the community, or is just based on is it really necessary to build that wall, and has it considered all the social implication that it will be from that wall? That's my question for Professor Allison. And the other one for Professor Emily, this is also reflecting actually from Professor Samsidik have shown us on his research about developing a house, a house from local and with a very cheap, do we call that? A very simple design with a very cheap materials. But then after it was built and it is assured that it is safe for earthquake, but then the people itself is resist, they don't want to use it. So does it happen also in the project that you're working in China? I didn't know. You mentioned about the categories of countries that is high achiever who understand the risk of the unsafe building. Was China include in those with the high achiever or not? Thank you. Anyone who likes to answer first?
Shall I go first on this one while I got my voice? Yes, so and it might be actually quite helpful to have Anawat's contribution on this regarding Taro. I don't know the situation in Taro, but in Kesanuma, which was one of the slides that Anawat talked about, that was a location where they did definitely want to keep the beach. And I saw other locations. I think it was Miyako. Was it Miyagi? Miyako, I think, where there is a seawall, but there are windows in the seawall, and there are steps over the seawall. So there is still some access to the beach. But I would encourage a comment from Anawat, who's the real expert.
Thank you, Professor Allison. Maybe from Professor Amy first on my second questions.
Sure. Thank you for that. I think this is something that is a big problem in many countries, because as a kind of a Western researcher, we're going into countries like in China to say, actually, don't use concrete, because you should go back to your round earth and looking at reusing local materials. And there's resistance because they see reinforced concrete and steel buildings as progress, as a modern material that they would like to embed in their culture. But I think what we were successful with the China project, at least, is to bring in the beauty and the aesthetics. So if something's designed with aesthetics in mind and an environment that is very cool in the summer and very warm in the winter, it gives people that confidence that this is actually a modern building and a beautiful building. And what's happened actually since that building has been built is become almost like a community center, so that the old couple who live there have now used it as almost like a cafe in the summer, because it's so cool inside for people to rest before they go on their daily tasks. And so I think it's more about design, and this is what I really want to stretch. The technical solutions themselves may not be enough to get people to change their way of thinking. But it needs to be seen as progressive. So the local materials, the local craftsmanship, the vernacular housing have a place in the modern built environment. And I think that's the message I want to push forward.
Thank you, Professor Emily. I see Professor Anawat is here. Maybe you could add on what on my questions and have been explained by Professor Allison before.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes. So I think, if you remember my presentation, we have the criteria called tsunami level 1 and level 2, which is the basic criteria how we design the height of seawall. Just purely based on the return period or recurrence of the earthquake and tsunami, without any social perspective. So it's just like a master plan for the height. And of course, I think it's kind of difficult. I mean, as a governmental perspective, they would like to protect person with a budget, with a plan and things like that. But of course, there are many places that they also consult with local people. I think most of the area they consult with local people before they build the things. But so for specific area, as you can, like in your question, I think they of course they consider the local people, and they make workshop to explain people, okay, this is what we are going to do. Of course, one single plan cannot fit everyone's idea, so to be support or against. But yeah, so the idea of the height is, I believe that they follow the idea of tsunami level 1, level 2, the plan. But yeah, of course, you will see many places that has the wall and then no one lives behind the wall. So I think that is a lesson that other international experts or practitioners can be learned from what we have done in Japan. I would not say good or bad, but just kind of experience or lesson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for adding that information. It's very important. Well, we are just right on the time before the end of our session and our webinar today. So I would like just to wrap up this session, very interesting, and thank you again for the 3 of our speakers today, and the 4th with Ibu Okta, especially on the project that you have made throughout, and comparing other countries or other regions with the affected areas of tsunami and earthquake. And it's very important lesson learned for us. But as mentioned by Professor Allison earlier, that there is quite a missing link if all this collective knowledge that we have got and is carried out or developed by these our distinguished speakers and our scholars today is not disseminated and addressed through the community itself. Especially there is a need to raise awareness for the local community to accept the knowledge, accept the innovation, and then implement it in their daily life. Yeah. So, and maybe this is like you all mentioned that the 17 years of TDMRC's anniversary is quite a benchmark to try to continue on our work, which is communicating science and enhancing resilience. So with that, I end my task as the chair for Professor Emily and Allison today. Thank you very much. But before I close and end this session, I would like to hand over the Zoom to Professor Samsidik, who will give his closing remarks of our webinar today. Professor Samsidik, the Zoom is yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Rizana Rosemary. Very good morning, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all speakers, participants, and my friends here, colleagues at TDMRC. First of all, I would like probably to touch up some of the issues that have been raised by speakers today. We have Professor Anawat Supasri from Gilides of Tohoku University, and then Dr. Rina Suryani of TARI from our own TDMRC. And then we have Professor Alison from University of Plymouth and Professor Emilisa from University of Cambridge. And also thank you to all the moderators who have been serving excellently and moderating all the sessions that we have for today. I would like to probably just to summarize, if not like delivering a new one in my talk for now, that we acknowledge some remaining issues on disaster risk reduction. Although we have witnessed a number of giant disasters in the past, for example, what we have here in 2004 during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, and also a number of other tsunamis and also earthquake and also liquefactions, we still have a number of important issues to be addressed in the future. Although the title of today's webinar is on lesson learned from disaster affected areas, I think myself, I witness there are also lessons not learned. For example, how then we change our behavior toward disaster safety itself, or disaster risk understanding, for example. At some points, we also witness how people, or even ourselves as scientists, don't change the way we understand or the way we mitigate the impact of disasters. We try to work solely based on our expertise or based on our knowledge, but it is still difficult for some of us to connect dots among uncertainties in disaster risk reduction itself. We sometimes have difficulties to work with other disciplinary or other types of expertise, and that sometimes lead to what we call it lessons not learned. I think one of the interesting issues raised by Dr. Rizana just now, when TDMRC some years ago developed what we call it earthquake disaster-proof materials, but then we witnessed our local community here do not want to adopt the idea of that materials because they are not very familiar with the concept of the light concrete material, for example. These one of the examples that probably we need to look into, and we need to deal with, and we need to look for the solution for that. The other one is for the tsunami evacuation buildings. We have been throwing a lot of money to construct a number of vertical tsunami evacuation buildings in Aceh and some other part of Indonesia, but they are failed to serve as tsunami evacuation shelters. Some of the people did not want to use the building as evacuation buildings. They prefer to run horizontally. One of the reasons that we observed during the events, they are worried that, and even they are not sure whether the construction or the building can sustain the tsunami. So they have a bad experience looking at a number of high structure building in the area. So, well, this kind of thing is not very specific or not particularly only happening in Indonesia. We also observe this in other parts of the world. Please do not forget that today, some of our colleagues, some of our friends in Nepal are still struggling to evacuate some of the earthquake victims. Just happened for some days ago. So Nepal, as like Indonesia, they have a number of giant earthquakes before. But what happened in Nepal probably will also will repeated in the future in some other part of the world, and also in Turkey and some other part of the world. So I would like to probably highlight the importance of collaboration between us, among us. Alison, Emily, so, and also Anawan come from developed countries, and some other part of the world are still struggling to develop their own self, their own country. So the context and the settings, the cultures, and the social aspect, also the political aspects are different. It's like Emily so just touched just now. So we need to deal with this kind of issues also by dealing with this kind of issue means that we need to collaborate in interdisciplinary approach or multidisciplinary approach. We have here Dr. Rizana from social science. She and her colleagues at Faculty of Social Science and Political Science will know much better how to deal with the context and social aspect of the community. So let's work together. And as TDMRC, we open ourselves to any kind of collaboration and from anywhere. So you can just email us or contact us what kind of collaboration that we can work together and what kind of issue that we can solve together. So today, we are actually celebrating the 17 years of the establishment of TDMRC, but we still have a number of homeworks also. We are dreaming that we still have many years to come, but also we still have a number of works to do. I myself getting older, but I would like to dream that there will be many younger generation coming to TDMRC to work with us, and we can hand this over to younger generation. I would like to also thank to all my colleagues here at TDMRC, especially those who are coming from students body. I have here from Communicating Science Department of Universitas Syakwala, who've been working very hard to prepare this webinar, and also to other partners and colleagues who've been committed to also contribute to this event. So that would be my actually closing remarks. Thank you again to all speakers, to Ana Masupasri, Alison, Rabi, and also Emily, so, and also to Rina Suryani Oktari. I believe you have been worked very hard to allocate this time. You are very busy at your department, and we appreciate very much. You are committed to be part of this anniversary webinar. Yes, this is online platform, but we are very much looking forward to meeting you in person here in Banda Aceh or other part of the world. And so also thank you to all participants. I saw that in the Zoom, I believe my friends from Ambon, from Yogyakarta, from Surabaya, and some other part of Indonesia. Thank you very much for joining this event. By now, I would like to close this webinar. And at last but not least, I would like to thank to the committee, Arif and friends, been working for some weeks to contact the speakers and also the colleagues. That's all from my side. So thank you again, and see you next time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Samsidik, and everyone for joining us today in this webinar. We had a fruitful discussion, and hope TDMRC the best of its 17 years today. Thank you for the committee, Arif, Denny and the multimedia team, Pak Eka and everyone. Thank you all the speakers, and say goodbye from now. Bye-bye.